If you've got a bunch of Ryobi 18-volt tools that use batteries like this, then you've got a few options on how to have emergency power around the house. We're going to check out a couple of those options in this video, and I'm going to show you why this one is my choice. Hey everybody, it's Chris from Family Geekery. Today we're going to be checking out some portable inverters for emergency power that use the 18-volt batteries from Ryobi. Now, just to clarify, when I say emergency power, the best use case for something like what I'm going to be demonstrating today is going to be low-powered stuff that needs an AC outlet. And that would include things like your cable modem and your router. If you lose power around the house and you want to keep those devices talking to the internet, then you need to plug them in if you don't have battery backups. So what I'm not talking about is keeping your refrigerator and TV and all that stuff running through a storm. So mostly a bunch of devices that all end up less than 100 watts. And if we're talking about cable modem and routers and stuff like that, we're only talking about a handful of watts anyways. So I've got two different options here. This one, plain and simple, this is just going to snap right onto here. And it's going to be one outlet here for AC. You got a couple USBs there in case you need to charge up some phones and stuff, and it is 150 watts max, which isn't bad. Now, when you talk about 150 watts, you have to also remember how long your battery is going to last once you start drawing that much power. And the Ryobi batteries usually have their capacities listed on the bottom. Most of the times you're going to see them listed as some kind of amp hours. So in this case, this is a 4 amp hour battery, but down on the bottom it says that 4 amp hours, if you multiply that by the 18 volts, that's 72 watt hours. So some simple math tells you that if you're using this inverter here and getting 150 watts out of it, this thing's only going to last for half an hour. So like I said, that's not an ideal use case for something like this. If you're talking about something that takes maybe 10 watts or 5 watts, then you're talking lasting a half a day or a day. So that's really the target for these type of devices. So I said in the intro that this is going to be my inverter of choice, and that's going to be even though it is less power. So this one says it's 120 watts. So same type of device, it's going to take the battery power from this and convert it to AC. You got one outlet there, you got 2 USB ports there, and we got 120 watts max. Again, is that a big difference between these two? Well, it's a 30 watt difference, but again, I'm not going to be using something like this for 150 watts anyways, so that 120 watts is going to be fine. As you can see, this thing doesn't plug into that thing too easily. It's got this little adapter here. This plugs into that. This tip right here plugs into the back of there, and then you've got your inverter running. But what this also has is another cable that plugs into it that can go into your car. So the package actually says that this thing is emergency power that uses this for temporary power, and then it uses this for, and they say unlimited power. Now, unlimited power as long as you've got a car that's running and your battery isn't dead or you haven't run out of gas. But yes, this does open up the possibilities to a lot more duration than just this little 4 amp hour battery or whatever size batteries that you have. Now, if you're like me and you've got these tools already, then you have a handful of these batteries and you can keep swapping them out, keep your internet up in the house for several days if you need to. But having the option of plugging this in is even nicer, and we're going to test that out. And I'm not going to pull my car up onto the bench here. I'm going to be using this guy here, and recently I did a video on this Anker Solix. This is a C300, and it's got a cigarette lighter plug on there. And in the full video, if you watch it, I do test this thing out with this particular inverter, and that's what we're going to be showing again in this video. But first, we're going to test it out with the Ryobi battery as it's intended. Alright, so let's just go ahead and assume that everything that this can do, this can also do. We're going to just consider them same, so I'm just going to continue on with just this guy since he's my favorite. And I've got the adapter plugged in here, just sitting on top of this battery, and I've got it plugged in the back. I press the button here to turn this on. So now we've got the inverter running. So to find out how much energy I'm able to draw through there, I'm going to use this little power meter here. So I'm going to plug that into the front. And let's just prop this up somewhere. And now I'm going to plug in this little miniature crock pot, my trusty little dipper, and I'm going to plug that in front here. And I'm just going to go ahead and turn this all the way over to warm. That's the lowest setting. and we are pulling 63 watts right now through that little inverter, which is pulling from this battery right here. Now remember, we said that that battery, that 4 amp hour battery back there was, what, 72 watt hours? So we're going to be able to pull this 63 watts here for a little bit over an hour, and there may be some conversion, some inefficiency of going from DC to AC through the inverter, so we can round that down, of course. But at least we're seeing that it's handling that 63 watts no problem. Now this little inverter will eventually warm up as it's, working for a long time, and it will start to spin up a little fan inside to dissipate some of that heat. So we may hear that, but I'm going to go ahead and pull this up to low. And now we're pulling 94 watts. So this is probably a little bit closer to getting to that maximum, since we've got a max of 120 watts coming out of here. So that means it's pulling a little bit more power than that out of the battery. But I would be comfortable maintaining this 94 watts here for as long as that battery lasted. Now keep in mind, this is still not the most efficient way of doing this. We want to keep low voltage stuff on here, or use this to charge up phones, tablets, that kind of stuff during a power outage. You're probably not cooking queso dip when you're in an emergency situation. So let's go ahead and switch gears and trade out the battery pack for the cigarette lighter plug. Let me set that up and I'll be right back. Alright, so now we're going to ignore this battery. It's just sitting here to prop this up so it stands up straight. And behind here we do have that little inverter. You can't see it because of the big power meter here in front. But now consider this right here is plugged into your car, or it could be plugged into one of your emergency power stations like this Anker Solix. So now I've got the 12 volts from here going into the inverter. The inverter's changing it to AC, and now I can go back to my little dipper and turn that on. And now we can see actually how much power we're drawing from this battery, because we're showing 64 watts here, and on this battery it's showing that it's pulling 60 or 78 watts out of the battery. So you're seeing about 10 or 15 watts being lost in the conversion through that inverter. But at least now we've got a much longer amount of time that we can run this thing, because either we're going through a much bigger battery bank, or we've got a car that has a much bigger battery in it and it has an alternator that can keep that battery going if you need to. So this is showing that it's got a little over 2 hours remaining, and this thing's only 58% full anyways. So much longer than one of your Ryobi batteries, but having the option to do either the battery or the cigarette lighter plug is the reason why I always choose this one over this little guy here. This one's probably much more compact, but the 2-in-1 is much more versatile. So I think that's going to wrap it up for this video. I just wanted to show you real quick how you could use your Ryobi batteries, or really any type of battery, to get yourself a little emergency power. If you have any questions about this, by all means drop them down in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer them. I hope you got something out of this. If you did, I appreciate a thumbs up. That helps out the channel. But I think that's going to do it for this one. I appreciate you for watching, and until next time, peace out and geek out.